Now that we have briefly touched upon the app fundamentals, wherein we discussed content providers, broadcast receivers, services, and activities, it's time for us to move on to our next topic, and that is manifest file, right? Now, the manifest, if you remember, has already been discussed. In fact, I also showed you one of the manifests in our previous apps. So, here's the manifest of the app that we designed earlier, and this app is running because of this manifest. Believe it or not, manifests are such important components of any Android app that you cannot have an Android app without a manifest file, right? It basically has all the information that you require to run an app, and your Android system talks to your app. The first thing it does is it reads your manifest file, right? So that's what manifests do. Now let's discuss them at length. Before the Android system can start an app component, the system must know that the component exists by reading the app's manifest file, right? Like I said earlier. And the manifest does a number of things in addition to declaring the app's components. It also identifies any user permissions that the app requires. So if you remember, we had briefly talked about the user permissions which you will be giving to the Android system when we were talking about the security of Android, right? So what this is all about is, if you have noticed, in fact, I'm sure you must have noticed in a lot of apps that you did install, it asks for your permission, right? Let's say you want the app to access the contacts of your phone, then you will have to give the permission for the app to access the contacts. Or if you want to save something through the app in your storage, permanent storage, then you will have to give the permission for the app to do so, right? So how you do that is you just simply type users permission, and then you have to name the permission. So you can see there are a lot of permissions here, and the huge list of permissions that you need to give. Now these permissions are also of different types. We will discuss these permissions later on when they come up, but for time being, you can understand there are basically two types of permissions. One is the permission that will actually be asked by the user, right? So for example, if the user wants to if the app wants to store something in the user's phone, then they need to have the read and write permissions for the storage of the user, right? But if you want to if you just want to use internet for the app, which is probably true for any app that you use today, not all the apps, but most of the apps you require internet, right? So in that case, you will be using uses internet, right? For example, this one, right? So you have to put uses internet, and this is something which will not show up to the user. The user will not be giving the permission to the app to use the internet, but the nomenclature or the system requires you to mention the permission here, right? So this is what the permissions are all about when it comes to manifest. Another thing that manifests are used for is API level. If you want, you can declare the API level in the manifest. In our case, we did not do so, but you can declare it here, and you do that by typing it uses SDK. And once you do that, you can mention which API level is your app is going to be of. Declares hardware and software features used for or required by the app, such as camera, Bluetooth. So in case your app requires camera to be used, then you will have to give the hardware or multi-touch screen. All these features are to be described in the manifest. I keep on repeating this. We will be discussing these at length later when the when the manifest is discussed in totality. But timing, because we need to move ahead and discuss other topics as well. You need to understand the basics of these things, right? So API levels can be decided through manifest. The hardware and software features can be described, and any API libraries that you are using. So what do we mean by API libraries? What we mean is, in Android development, you might want to have you might want to use a couple of libraries which are already being developed by other developers. And these libraries, for example, there's a library called Picasso. This library lets you download any image which is available on an on internet link, very fast. You just have to mention the link and it gets downloaded to an image view, right? So in such cases you would want to use such libraries, and these libraries can be used by declaring them in the manifest. For example, they have mentioned Google Maps library. You want the maps features to be used in your app, you can use this library, because otherwise making your own library or making your own app which contains these features, it will take umpteen number of years and it's not worth it, right? Now, declaring components, you can also declare component. For example, here some components have been declared. You have mentioned icon. This is the launcher icon that you see outside the app in the system tray. So this is basically the launcher icon which you can mention here. The label of the app, what is the name of the app that you want to give, we have mentioned it here. And then round icon supports RTL truth. So basically these are different attributes of an app which you can mention in the manifest file. In case if anywhere you want me to describe any one of these attributes further, because I feel that these attributes should be discussed when they are actually being used, otherwise these things don't stay in your mind, right? So in case you want any kind of explanation, do let me know in the comment sections. Here is the declaring components part. We have already discussed the services receiver. Now you understand you might be requiring some services. A music app might want to use a service, so in that case you will have to declare the services, the receiver, broadcast receiver. In case you're making an alarm app, then you will have to declare the receiver here inside the application, and you do that by just typing receiver. And as you can see, it gives you the option to write the name of the receiver, and this name would be the name of the class that is acting like a receiver, right? So that's about the components that you can declare in the manifest. And you can also declare the components capabilities, which we will discuss in our next video. See you.